Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga shared the power of Guyver and love? Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Hyuga slammed into a tree and bounced off, managing to drop into a defensive stance even as Naruto dropped out of the handstand that he had used to deliver the double-footed kick and rolled to his feet. As they squared off, a shrill ringing noise sounded and both of them looked at the alarm clock and the clone of Naruto who was reaching out to turn it off. Hyuga sighed and rubbed at his shoulder even as a third Naruto appeared and handed him a beaker of chilled water. "Why didn't you use your clones to help you fight?" Hyuga asked once he had taken a sip. "They're too vulnerable." Naruto shrugged as he lowered his own beaker, then he scooped up a pebble and hurled it at the drink-bringing clone, causing it to dissipate. One hit and they're down. Elemental clones are tougher, but they have their own problems such as not being able to use chakra or having a very limited range. Hyuga blinked. "Really? I can't even do a normal bunshin. I have way too much chakra." Naruto sighed as he watched his other clone carry away the alarm clock. "You could always use your clones to supply cover," Hyuga said thoughtfully. "You know, distance techniques, throwing kunai, that sort of thing." Naruto opened his mouth, then paused as he thought it through. I hadn't considered that." Hyuga snorted, then scooped up a pebble of his own and threw it into the bushes. "Ow!" Naruto dropped his beaker and summoned a dozen clones who instantly piled into the bushes. A moment later, they returned with a rope-bound figure with dark hair. "I think you may have gone overboard with the rope." Hyuga grinned as he tried to prise apart the rope cocoon to see who was inside. MMMMPH. MMMMMPH. MRRMMMRMPH. Dispel. Naruto said from Hyuga's side and the ropes vanished in a burst of chakra, letting the trapped figure drop to the ground. Hyuga fixed the blonde with a quizzical look. "Hanged cage bunshin." Hyuga tried to say something, then just settled for shaking his head. "Hey, you're idioty. Idate." The boy growled as he picked himself up and glared at Naruto. "Morino idate. Well, if you were spying on us, you must be an idiot." Hyuga snarked. "So, why?" Idate seemed to sag. "My brother's currently too busy to help me and you two keep getting better at taijutsu. I decided to see if you were doing anything that I could use." Morino, Hyuga mused. "I remember hearing something about your family. Ah yes. Your clan has 3 separate taijutsu styles, right?" Yeah. Idate agreed as he brushed himself off. "Sokudoken, Suyoken and Gimenkoken. That is. The speeding fist, the strong fist and the deceiving fist." Hyuga nodded. "Which one do you use?" "Sokudoken," Idate said as he glowered at Naruto, who simply gazed back with an innocent expression. "Obviously, I'm not fast enough. I can find a few exercises that will help you get faster." Naruto offered and Idate gave him a surprised look. "Really? Why? Why not?" Naruto shrugged. "I mean, Neji's archery puts him ahead of me, especially since the teachers don't like me and will mark me down if they can, so when I graduate, if I already have 2 people I can work with, Gigi'll probably see to it that I'm put on the same team as them." Hyuga and Idate exchanged a long look before Idate spoke. "You sound as if you know why they hate you." Naruto nodded with a wry smile. "Classified. Sorry, but if we do get assigned together, I promise I'll tell you." Idate nodded while Hyuga scowled. "Report." The left figure demanded and the headmaster of the academy swallowed. The Jinchuriki is currently the second highest ranked student of his class and his scores are improving, especially since he now has 2 regular sparring partners. "Who would team up with that thing?" the female shape asked, disgust suffusing her voice. Morino Idate and Yugura. Idate is the younger brother of Morino Ibiki, the new head of T&I, the male figure mused. I do not remember this Yugura. He is an orphan who wishes to become a taijutsu practitioner. Had Maida Guy not chosen Rock Lee as his apprentice to be, Yugura would have been his next choice. The headmaster supplied. So, not a true loss if he gets assigned to its team, but not someone we can apply leverage through. The male stated. We will consider this. You may go. The headmaster left, leaving the two figures sat in the darkened room. With Danzo gone and is forced to retire, we do not have much leverage left. The man said and the other figure nodded. You are correct, Homura, but we still have some. With Danzo gone, we are the only ones left to counter Hiruzen's policies which will wreak havoc with Konoha's strength. You are preaching to the converted, Kahara. Homura sighed. Hiruzen is too soft-hearted. Look how he coddles the Jinchuriki, he should be molding it into a weapon rather than letting it squander all that power. Kahara nodded. Still, at least Konoha has the great armor of Uzushiogakure available to it. If we can acquire it from Uzumaki hero, we can have one of the more loyal shinobi use it and no one will be able to tell the difference. Homaru nodded. And if we can duplicate it, then no one will be able to contest Konoha's primacy. The two retired shinobi smiled at the thought of Konoha's eventual supremacy. Yugura bent over, breathing deeply as Idate almost collapsed against a tree. How are you? He panted and Naruto wiped away the light sheen of sweat from his brow. I'm an Uzumaki, he said as if it explained everything. Idate glared at him and he continued. We Uzumaki were renowned for having huge chakra reserves and tons of stamina. Also for Fuinjutsu, but that's something I'm still working on. Really? Yugura asked, having managed to get his breathing back under control. I don't remember hearing about them at the academy. The academy is run by civilians, it's part of the deal made during the last Shinobi War. Naruto grumped. They didn't like how Konoha talking about Uzushiogakure irritated the other nations and so they pulled it from the academy texts. What the? Why would they do that? Idate asked and Naruto gave him a flat look. Trade. Since the war ended, the Land of Fire's trade has increased. They don't want anything to cause the lands of lightning, earth and water to cut down on it and reminding them that they all lost a huge part of their shinobi forces attacking Uzushiogakure in what led to the Third Shinobi War would do that. Kiri, Kumo and Iwa have removed all reference to Uzushiogakure from their own history books and blame the Yondaime Hokage for the majority of the losses they took. By the 1,000 kamis. Idate gasped. What the hell happened to make them do that? I'll give you copies of the records. Naruto sighed. So, recovered yet? Both of the older boys glared at him. It's him again. Sasuke noted as he and Hinata watched the blonde square up to a student almost twice his size. Interesting. I agree. Shikamaru said from behind them, causing Hinata to jolt in surprise. The blonde is being constantly matched against the stronger or more violent students, it's almost as if the teachers are trying to get him maimed or force him to quit. Hinata briefly activated her Byakugan and frowned. His shoulders. What about them? Sasuke asked curiously as the blonde in the training arena below dodged a blow that would have concussed him had it hit. He has something in his shoulders, just by his shoulder blades, something that is there, but isn't. Hinata said, frustration at her inability to describe what she was seeing evident in her voice, then she gasped. I've seen that type of chakra before. What chakra? Sasuke and Shikamaru chorused before giving each other disconcerted glances. In his shoulders, the chakra is like that of Hiro. Hinata said slowly. It's like he has bits of Hiro's armor in his shoulders, but at the same time, it's as if they're not there. I don't understand. He's linked to Uzumaki hero. Sasuke almost demanded as he leaned sharply forwards for a better look, only to bash his forehead against the window. Ow! Uzumaki. Shikamaru repeated with a fierce frown of concentration. Does anyone know who Naruto's parents are? My parents won't discuss it. Sakura said as she leaned across Shikamaru's desk for a better look. They warned me that he was bad news, and they deny any knowledge of his parents. Interesting. Shikamaru mused. The most obvious conclusion is that something happened that caused the adults to decide that Naruto's parents were not part of Konoha, traitors, perhaps. I don't recall seeing anything in the books about an Uzumaki clan. That's because there isn't, Sakura stated as she watched Naruto deliver a scything kick to the back of his opponent's leg, sending the larger boy down onto one knee. Troublesome. Shikamaru sighed as Naruto somersaulted over his adversary and wound up for a powerful kick. Every male watching the fight winced as the foot made contact, sending the larger boy out of the ring in a tight knot of intensely personal pain. Ow! Sasuke whispered as one of the teachers stormed over and started screaming at the unrepentant boy. I think I'll need to invest in a cup if I ever go up against him. Hyuga hid his own wince as Tenmaru crashed to the ground, whimpering in pain. Naruto glared at the class bully, then gave a small bow to indicate that the spar was over even as the teacher stormed up. Uzumaki. What? Naruto asked. I just did to him what he did to Hikaru during the last sparring session. He didn't get into trouble for that, so why should I get in trouble now? Several murmurs of agreement sounded and the teacher's face started to take on tinges of red and purple. He is right, sensei. Hikaru said from the sidelines as he stroked the sling that held his broken left arm. Tenmaru did not get in trouble for doing that to me, or for breaking my arm. Why is that? The teacher glared at the skinny youth, then turned and stormed over to Tenmaru, picking him up. Everyone stay put while I take him to the infirmary. He growled. I didn't get taken to the infirmary. Hikaru noted and the teacher almost snarled at him before storming off, half dragging the crying bully. Everyone watched him go, then Hikaru turned to face Naruto. We will never be friends, but thank you. He said and Naruto grinned at him. That bully should never have been allowed to join the academy. Believe it. Agreed. Hikaru said, giving Naruto a respectful nod before turning and walking over to his own friends. Damn, how did you do that? Hyuga asked. The stick in his is bigger than the one the Hyugas use. Naruto blinked, then started to laugh while unseen by them. Neji turned to glare at them. Naruto floated above the village as he contemplated his future. He actually had two proper friends now, friends who had taken it upon themselves to help him with his remaining weaknesses and who respected him. He'd even met Idate's older brother, Ibiki. Damn, he had been scary. A spot of heat on the edge of one of the training fields caught his attention and Naruto floated down, coming to a halt almost 3 meters above the ground. The tree in which the heat signature was located rustled a bit and Naruto reached out, pushing the branches aside so that he could see who it. Hyuga. The wooden platform on which Hyuga was curled up on was suspended by a rope at each corner and a tarpaulin provided shelter from rain, but the evidence was unmistakable. Hyuga had been thrown out of the orphanage, much like he had years ago. Naruto carefully released the branches and flew back towards his house. He'd need help with this, and who better than himself? Hyuga stretched, then froze as he realized that he was lying on a futon rather than the salvaged roof panel that had been his encampment after the orphanage had thrown him out, for consorting with the demon brat. Sitting up, he looked round curiously at the room he was in and his eyes widened as he saw all of his clothes neatly folded on the shelves in the open wardrobe. A kimono was next to his futon and Hyuga wasted no time in shucking the dirty clothes he had been sleeping in and donning the garment. Walking to the door, Yugura slowly opened it and yelped as he came face to face with a familiar person. Naruto. Yep. Well, actually I'm clone of the boss. Naruto replied with a smirk. Boss is outside training while we clones do the housework for him. If you want to wash up, breakfast is being made. Yugura fought down the confusion that threatened to overwhelm him and followed the clone down the stairs. Where am I? Boss's house. The clone replied with a grin. Boss found you last night and we put you in our spare bedroom. Why didn't you tell him you were thrown out of the orphanage? Yugura paused, unable to articulate his thoughts, and the clone nodded. Pride? Yeah, pride is for samurai, we're training to be ninja. If you need help, ask. Simple as that. The clone led Yugura to a door located partially underneath the stairs and opened it, revealing a bathroom. You wash up and then you can talk to boss about this. Thank you, Yugura said gratefully, and the clone shrugged. If all goes to plan, we'll be teammates and teammates help each other. Yugura nodded with a smile. Yes, they do. Naruto grinned as he saw a familiar hatted figure enter the room and both teachers stiffened. Lord Hokage. One of them finally managed. We are honored to have you here. I thought that I would help oversee this test. Hiruzen stated as he looked across the totally silent classroom. After all, before me are those who wish to become my ninja. I could do no less than watch them prove themselves. The teacher who hadn't spoken took advantage of Hiruzen's turning to face the pupils to quickly release a small technique on the pile of test papers on the desk, then he picked them up. With your permission, Hokage-sama. Of course. Hiruzen replied, but only Naruto caught the glimpse of irritated humor aimed at the second teacher. Ibiki would probably have a new person to ask questions of very soon. What was that thing that Sensei Takahata did just before he handed out the tests? Naruto wondered as the class made their way to the shuriken range. It was a genjutsu cancel. Idate supplied. He removed a genjutsu from at least one test. Probably mine. Naruto sighed. The last time I took a test without doing a genjutsu cancel, the answers I put down were all wrong for the questions on the paper when I saw it afterwards. I remember wondering what had happened. Yugura hemmed in thought as they exited the building and lined up ready. The first name was called out and Idate looked round. My brother was asking about you. Naruto blanched and Idate quickly moved to reassure him. No, not professionally. He was intrigued. He knows that a certain person is watching over you. Hiro. Naruto said quietly and Idate nodded. Yes, Hiro. I think he's also curious about the armor. Before Naruto could reply, his attention was seized by the bow materializing in Hyuga Neji's hands. An instant later, Neji's hands blurred and 6 arrows clustered in the center of the target. Then Neji whispered something and the 7th arrow multiplied into over 20, perforating the wooden stump before dissipating in clouds of smoke. Perfect score and 20 bonus points. Takahata announced and Naruto sighed. Well, looks like I'll be in second place since I don't have Senbon or arrows on me. Actually, I don't even know how to use a bow, I'll have to learn, just in case. Neji smirked as he made way for the next student. Naruto watched as the others demonstrated skills ranging from absolutely perfect Tenten, if he remembered rightly, and she gained an extra 20 points for her skill, to ones where the only safe place to stand was in front of the target. One notably errant kunai would have buried itself in Yugura's leg had Naruto not managed to catch it. All too soon, though, it was Naruto's turn, and rather than accept the use of the Academy kunai and shuriken, Naruto pulled out his own. Those were made by my father. Tenten gasped from the sidelines and Naruto grinned as he threw the first kunai, scoring a solid hit. His next throw, honed by the cumulative training done by his clones over the previous few years, slammed into the target so close to the first kunai that it actually shared the same hole. Switching hands, Naruto hurled another pair of kunai, then hurled two more, one from each hand. Pulling out the last four, he spun and unleashed all four in quick succession, blocking out the view of the center of the target due to the clustered kunai. How the heck? Sasuke gasped as he witnessed the throws from the top of the academy. Interesting. Itachi mused from beside him, and Sasuke jolted in shock, not having realized that Itachi had joined him. The way he moves, he has trained extensively. Sasuke gave his older brother a slight glower, then turned his attention back to the scene below where the last shuriken had just impaled the target. Brother, how is he that good? He must spend a great deal of time practicing. Itachi mused. Just like Higurashi Tenten, Sasuke glanced at his semi-estranged brother, then turned his attention back to the crowd below. That'll be me next year, he whispered. And finally, the Bunshin. Naruto glanced across to where Hiruzen was sat and surreptitiously moved his hand into the seal for Kage Bunshin. Hiruzen nodded slowly and Naruto grinned. Excellent, I'm going to pass. Yugura and Idate exchanged looks of comprehension at his statement and then grinned. So, chances of us being on a team together? Idate asked as the next student walked up and demonstrated her ability to make 3 illusionary copies of herself. Hiruzen nodded again and Naruto's grin widened. Very high. Thanks, Gigi. How? Yugura asked and Naruto's grin widened. He's not called the professor for nothing, you know. He probably knows every non-clan skill used in Konoha and several of the clan skills. Boosting and directing his hearing is something he taught me a few months back, I'm still working on it, though. Idate managed as he stared in shock at Naruto. The Hokage taught you? Why? Classified. Naruto grinned, earning exasperated glares from his 2 friends. Hey Idate, you're up. Idate grumbled under his breath as he stomped off. Hiruzen hid a smirk as he listened into the conversation, but part of him was worried. Naruto was dropping hints that he knew about his burden and maybe even his parentage. Just what had Hiro told him? Hinata sat behind the tree, her Byakugan active as she carefully examined Uzumaki Naruto's chakra system. His chakra coils were incredibly strong, stronger even than her father's, but the way that the chakra flowed was far less controlled. 2 oddities stood out to her gaze, the strange there but not there chakra shapes in his shoulders which were very reminiscent of Hiro's armor and the strange reddish chakra which resided in his lower abdomen, attached to his chakra system by a strange swirling chakra structure that she recognized as a seal, but one far too complex for her to even hope to decode. As she watched, Naruto was called forwards to show his skill at making clones. Lord Hokage, Naruto said formally, although the corner of his mouth kept twitching with the grin that he was barely keeping in check. Despite my training in chakra control, I still cannot hold back enough to perform the standard Bunshin. May I perform an alternative type? The aim is to demonstrate that you have enough control to perform a complex technique. Hiruzen mused, his eyes sparkling with suppressed mirth. Please, show me what you can do. Yes, Hokage-sama. Naruto bowed, then his hands moved into a seal that Hiruzen recognized instantly. Kage Bunshin. A trio of solid clones appeared around him and each one promptly started their own techniques. Mizu Bunshin, Doden Kage Bunshin, Raiden Kage Bunshin. The 3 clones each generated a new clone before popping and Naruto stepped forwards, his hands flashing through the ram, horse, monkey and ram seals before he vomited up a rock that turned into another clone. Iwa Bunshin, he stated with a smirk before performing one more set of seals that ended with the Kage Bunshin seal, causing Hiruzen's eyes to widen. Bunshin Daibakua, Naruto announced as the new clone ran at the rock clone, who had braced himself. The newest clone leapt onto the rock clone's hands and was catapulted into the air, where it exploded. So, Naruto said in the shocked silence while all of the other clones dispersed or fell apart into their elemental origin. That would be 6 different types of clone. Do I get extra points for that? Indeed you do. Hiruzen smiled. Indeed you do. You realize that you have both presented me with a problem. Hiruzen said as Neji and Naruto stood in front of his desk. Both of you are in line for the position of Rookie of the Year, but Neji can have it. Naruto interrupted. One team is always the rookie, the next highest of the opposite gender and the last in class, and I really doubt that Yagura or Idate or girls are the dead last. Hiruzen nodded. I see. Do you wish to oppose this, Neji? No, Hokage-sama. Neji finally managed. I would not wish to prevent Naruto-san from having a team that he can work with, and I believe that Higurashi Tenten's Shurikenjutsu skills are a good match for my long-range archery and short-range taijutsu. Well reasoned. Hiruzen nodded. Congratulations, Hyuga Neji, on being the Rookie of the Year. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Neji bowed. Naruto-san, thank you for your sacrifice. Neji, you are dismissed. Hiruzen smiled as Naruto nodded to his fellow genin. Go share the news with your clan. Naruto, please stay. Neji retreated from the office, and once the door was closed, Hiruzen's genial facade faded. Naruto, he said, I need to know, are you now the owner of the armor? Naruto nodded and Hiruzen seemed to age. And do you know about my parents and my burden? Naruto asked. Yes. I intended to tell you. Hiruzen sighed. I planned to tell you about the Kyuubi once you became a genin and about your parents once you became a chunin, so that you would have a chance of being able to defend yourself if it leaked. But now you have the armor, is it in the base? Naruto shook his head. No, I can summon it at any time. Oh, will you demonstrate? Better to do it outside. Naruto said, looking round the office and wincing. Too much breakable stuff here. Hiruzen rose from his chair and motioned for Naruto to follow him out of the tower. As they went down the stairs, he spoke. I was quite impressed at the number of clone techniques you know. Hey, once I learned the Kage Bunshin and realized that the memories from the dispels went to the other clones as well as myself, it was easy. Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. A constant 10 clones a day on each technique adds up to a lot of practice. Indeed it does. Hiruzen agreed. You may be second only to the Uchiha in learning new skills, but just because you know how to do something, it isn't the same as knowing when to use it. Naruto was quiet as he thought about it, then he slowly nodded. Yeah, I think I get it. Using the wrong skill can leave you totally open to enemy attacks, right? Indeed. Hiruzen said with a proud smile as he led Naruto outside into an enclosed courtyard. Now, if you would. Sure. Gigi. Armor on. Hiruzen's eyes widened as Naruto was lifted into the air, an energy sphere forming around him and impacting on the ground to leave a small crater. An instant later, a series of flashes marked the appearance of the various parts of the armor, parts that connected to each other by the odd cables and formed around Naruto. As the armored figure landed, Hiruzen slowly circled him. Incredible. Thanks, Gigi. Yes, that is definitely you in there, Naruto. Hiruzen chuckled, then he sobered. Naruto, I hate to do this, but no one can know it is you in there. When you are armored, you must go by the name of the last one to use it, Uzumaki hero. Naruto tilted his head and Hiruzen sighed. Konoha needs hero, Naruto. If our enemies find out that he is no longer alive, they will do their utmost to seize that armor and will kill you without a second thought. Do not tell anyone about your armor, or your base, unless I tell you that you can. Oh, okay Gigi. Should I turn back now? Please. Hiruzen said, then he smiled. After all, I don't see any way for you to eat the ramen I am about to buy you while you are wearing that. Before he had finished, the armor vanished and Naruto dropped to the ground. Ramen. Yay. So, Naruto is the new hero. Shikaku mused and Hiruzen nodded, glancing at the other two men in the room. He is, but this is an SS class secret. Outside this room, Uzumaki Hiro is still alive and willing to protect Konoha. When his identity is finally revealed, my daughter will freak. Inoichi smirked. Are Hiashi and Fugaku going to find out about this? No. Hiruzen said after a long moment of contemplation. Fugaku is currently loyal to Konoha, but knowing that a genin has ownership of what may be the most powerful weapon in existence, the temptation might prove too much for him. And if I cannot tell him, then I cannot tell Hiashi either without risking the implication of favoritism. For a long moment, the office was silent and then the final figure spoke. So, who is being assigned to lead his team? And what will he be told? Everyone looked at Shikaku, who sighed. Akamaiki Shito was my first choice, but he was injured on his last mission dealing with Nuke Nin from Omegakure and is currently in hospital. He would be dead if not for the actions of his teammate, Rokushu Aoi. Aoi, isn't he the one that uses that Senbon umbrella? Inoichi asked and Shikaku nodded. The ribs are made from chakra metal with the tips sharpened while the fabric can be reinforced with chakra to form a shield. He said. It also protects him from the harsh sun or heavy rain. He's an all-rounder who prefers hit-and-run tactics. He'll be a good match for the three of them. An ambush and capture team. Ibiki said slowly. We haven't had one of those in the field since the last Ino Shika-cho team. Good times. Inoichi said quietly. Hey, wanna grab Choza and have a drink? My wife wants me back tonight. Shikaku sighed. If I don't, it would be troublesome. Team 4. Naruto mused as he put down his empty bowl and accepted another. I wonder who this Aoi guy is. My brother knows of him. Idate said between bites as he ate his own bowl of ramen. Green hair, uses an umbrella. A what? Yugura asked from Naruto's other side and Idate smirked. Not one of the ones that the civilians use, a proper ninja umbrella. My brother showed me one. The struts are steel with the tips sharpened, the point is also sharp for stabbing and it can be used to fire Senbon. The paper itself includes chakra wire allowing it to be used to deflect attacks. Oh, like the fan that Madara used and that. Hiro sliced in half. Yugura finished as Naruto reined himself in before he could give away his secret. So, green hair and an umbrella. Naruto mused. That's not much to go on, maybe I should ask the old man about him, see if I can get us some more info. No need. A voice said from behind them and all three boys turned to see a green-haired man smiling at them, the handle of an umbrella poking up over his right shoulder. I guess that you three are the team that I'm supposed to be meeting tomorrow, good to see that you are already working together. I am Jonin Rokushu Aoi. Genin Uzumaki Naruto and these are Yugura and Morino Idate. Naruto chirped as Aoi took one of the vacant seats and accepted a menu. Good to meet you. He smiled, then turned to Ayami, who was watching from behind the counter. A bowl of shrimp ramen and a cup of water for me please, and a bowl each of whichever flavor they like for my team to be. My treat. Best. Sensei. Ever. Naruto celebrated and Aoi laughed. Easy to please, aren't you? I noticed on your records that while Idate lives with his brother, you two share a house. It's his, I just pay rent. Yugura said as he handed Ayami his empty bowl for washing up. It's a very nice house at the foot of the monument, near the path to the top. Oh, that house. Aoi said in realization. I remember seeing it and wondering who managed to get permission to build a house there, that explains it. I had a spare room and Yugura needed somewhere to stay. Naruto shrugged. Besides, he's a great sparring partner, he really helped me to learn my katas. And given how little he was helped at the academy, he needed the help I could give. Yugura grumbled. I'm still better, though, despite how unpredictable he is. Meh. I'm better at traps and powerful ninjutsu. Naruto countered. Having awesome chakra reserves really helps. I'm learning the art of interrogation from my brother. Idate offered. I'm also good at traps, but I'm the best of us with kunai and shuriken. I'm also practicing Senbon throwing. A truly rounded team. Aoi said with an easy smile. Thank you. Ayame smiled as she quickly placed the other bowls in front of the three genin, and for a moment, the quartet were silent as they applied themselves to eating. Ayame, that was wonderful as always. Naruto grinned, earning a shocked look from Aoi. We don't know how he eats so fast either, sensei. Idate sighed, correctly interpreting the look. He currently holds the record for bowls eaten in a single sitting. Aoi shook his head and returned to his ramen. Good morning. Aoi smiled as he jogged onto the training field where all three genin were waiting. I know that you're excited about starting, and I've examined your records so that I have a good idea of what you are capable of. However, all genin teams must be tested and passed by their jonin senseis before they become official teams, which means that you have to pass my test first. Bring it on! Naruto exclaimed. We'll flatten that test. Before we begin, please be seated. Aoi said as he dropped to sit cross-legged on the grass. Taking their cue from him, the three genin also sat down, their attention fixed on him. Team 4 is intended to be a multi-purpose team, but one with the primary mission of ambushing and capturing enemy shinobi, either securing them for transport to where they can be interrogated or actually interrogating them in the field. Why is such a team needed, Yugura? Yugura blinked. An ambush and capture team can help to secure vital information, either relating to the mission in hand or more general information which could prove vital in other missions. A good answer. Aoi said approvingly. The last well-known ambush and capture team was the Inoshika Cho team. Who were they? Naruto, Yamanaka Inoichi, Nara Shikaku and Akamaiki Choza. Naruto replied instantly. Their clans have a long history of working together and often form teams comprising one of each clan. Very good, Naruto. Aoi complimented him. The best A and C teams, however, are the ones that aren't well-known. Idate. Well-known teams can be planned for and countermeasures created in order to stop them. Idate said instantly. Unknown teams cannot be planned for in any real way, giving them an advantage during the early stages of the mission. Brilliant. Aoi grinned. You really have been doing your homework. Now, let's discuss ninja tools. Apart from kunai, shuriken and swords, what other weapons are used by ninja? Team 4 passes, Hokage-sama. Aoi bowed. They passed my test flawlessly. Naruto. Aoi stated, shaking his head. He seems to think, there are many types of thinkers. There are those who reason their way through a problem, there are those who try to avoid problems, those who smash straight through or try to take them apart to rebuild them. In Naruto, I don't know, Aoi admitted. His mind works in ways I've never encountered before. He can miss the obvious but at the same time spot the 100 tiny details needed to see beyond the false facade that tricks others. Teaching him will be interesting. Did you know he makes money from selling tags? Hiruzen turned to stare at Aoi. He does. To Higurashi Kyugu. Aoi confirmed. They're good tags, I've used them myself on occasion. Having Naruto on my team means that I can now get them at cost. Hiruzen finally managed. Tags. I hadn't realized he studied Fuinjutsu that much. That will be very useful for an ambush team. How good is he? I spoke to Hyuga about it and he said that Naruto was probably at journeyman standard. Kage Bunshin. Hiruzen realized. With his chakra levels, he can use them to learn a great deal. Fascinating. Aoi mused, then he paused. Hokage-sama, Is he aware of his burden? He is. Here is inside. And a few other things as well, including his parentage, which you do not need to know at this time, so don't ask. Aoi blinked, then nodded. As you command, Hokage-sama. Good morning, team, welcome to your first full day as shinobi of Konoha. Aoi smiled and his students grinned at him. Before we get our missions, though, we shall discuss what the missions are for. Rescuing princesses, dethroning tyrants, capturing spies. Naruto began before Yagura caught him in a headlock and clapped a hand over his mouth. Not yet, Aoi said as he dropped into his normal seating pose, causing the other three to follow suit. For at least a month, we will be doing D ranks, missions with no real possibility of combat and which are inside Konoha. No combat, Naruto moaned. Then how are we supposed to prove how awesome we are? There is a reason for this. Aoi said calmly. Public relations. Idate, you look like you understand. Yes, sensei, I do. Idate agreed, half turning to face his teammates. Konoha is the village that treats civilians as equals. While the other four treat civilians as a necessary evil that need to be controlled by the shinobi, we treat civilians as valued partners to be protected. D ranks show them that we are happy to help them rather than lording it over them. Very good, Aoi said approvingly. There's more to it than that, though. D ranks will take you all over Konoha, allowing you to learn every street and alley like the back of your hand, something that is vital when trying to catch spies. It also introduces you to the civilians, letting them see you as people and not as scary killing machines that would slit their throats as soon as look at them. You will also make contacts among the civilians, people who are willing to tell you if something seems off, strange or wrong, thus helping to improve Konoha's security. You will learn where the best food can be purchased, the places where you can buy weapons and how cost and quality must always be balanced. You will learn civilian skills which will allow you to take missions into other lands, hiding as one who cannot fight and slipping under the gaze of enemy ninja. And you will learn teamwork. You will be able to predict what your teammates will do in any given situation. You will become able to perform entire missions without needing to speak a single word, as you know each other so well. And when I am satisfied with your progress, we will move on to C ranks, missions that take place outside of Konoha and which therefore run the risk of enemy actions such as bandits or nuke nin. I'm afraid that rescuing princesses and dethroning tyrants are more A-rank missions. You have a long way to go before you are ready for that. Idate and Yagura laughed at Naruto's pout. Now, Aoi said as he rose to his feet, his students mimicking his action, let us head to the mission office to get our first mission, and once we have done it, we will begin training so that we can improve ourselves. I hear you have a team. Aoi looked up and motioned for his friend to join him. I do indeed, and we had our first mission today. Do I know them? Ibiki's brother, the second best taijutsu student and the blonde who isn't a mindwalker. For a long moment, the duo simply sat silently, then Aoi motioned for the waiter to bring another bottle and saucer. So, this is a celebration. It is indeed. Aoi smiled as he accepted the bottle and placed it on the table. How is your job going? Not bad. The man shrugged. We've lost quite a few of the civilian-born, but given how the curriculum has been upgraded over the last few years, that was only to be expected. The Hyuga and the Uchiha are currently running a dead heat for the position of Rookie of the Year. Aoi snorted with laughter. How does it affect the rest of the class? They're trying to catch up, came the reply. For a while, the class was dividing into Hyuga and Uchiha camps until the two of them caught wind of what was happening and told everyone that they were being stupid. You have quite a few clan heirs in your class. Aoi noted and he received a nod in reply. Hyuga, Uchiha, Nara, Akamaki, Yamanaka, yeah. It's interesting. Aoi laughed at the wryness of the statement. You really do have a fondness for dry humor, Mizuki-san. Aoi entered his flat, closing the door behind him. Walking into the kitchen, he switched on the light and drew the curtains against the gathering darkness before shaking his hand. A folded piece of paper dropped out of his sleeve and he caught it before it could drop more than a few centimeters. Sitting down at the kitchen table, he unfolded the piece of paper and read it several times before rising once more and walking to the sink. Holding the paper up, he used a small Kaiden jutsu to ignite it, then he dropped the burning page into the sink, watching it fall into ashes before washing them away. You make a great messenger, Mizuki. He whispered to himself with a smirk. One cat. Naruto grumped as he placed the cat carrier on Hiruzen's desk. 3 hours and 15 minutes. Hiruzen noted, glancing at the clock set above the door. Not a bad time. That thing is a demon. Naruto ranted. And I know about demons. How? Idate asked and Naruto froze, his anger vanishing instantly, only to be replaced by panic. I got called a demon loads when I was younger, so I did some research into them. That makes sense. Yugura agreed while Aoi just gave his youngest genin a suspicious look. Anyway, that is mission. Capture Tora complete. Hiruzen interjected. Here is your payment and Naruto, please remain behind for a moment. The other 3 members of Team 4 accepted the scrolls containing their pay and left while Naruto shifted uncomfortably. Once the door was closed, Hiruzen spoke. Have you told them about me being hero? Naruto asked. No, you wanted it kept secret, right? Not that. Hiruzen sighed and Naruto's eyes widened in realization. Oh, you mean about me being a Jinchuriki? Yes. Nope. Naruto stated. Besides, I thought there was a law about it or something. The law is that no one can speak about your status as the container for the Kyuubi no Kitsune to someone who doesn't already know. Hiruzen agreed. However, there are 2 people to whom that law does not apply. Myself, as Hokage, and you. Sue, I can tell people if I need to. Naruto asked and Hiruzen nodded. Your teammates may need to know, Aoi already does. There are those out there who will target you for what you carry and you will need your team to guard your back. Surely they should know why. Hi, Naruto sighed. It's a big thing for me. Think about it. Hiruzen offered. You don't have to tell them today, but the longer you wait, the harder it will become. Naruto sighed. Yeah, I guess. At least Idate has learned from his brother how to keep secrets. Hiruzen noted and Naruto nodded. And Yugura's my roommate, maybe I'll invite Idate to a sleepover at the weekend and tell them then. Hiruzen his head. Does Yugura know about your base? Nah, keeping it secret's been a bitch and a half. Naruto sighed, then he froze. Maybe I should tell him, it would make things easier. Just think about it for now. Hiruzen smiled, then he motioned to the door. I believe that your team is waiting for you. Naruto nodded, then paused. Gigi, should I keep doing my patrols? Patrols. Naruto looked down as he floated above Konoha. His gaze passed across the familiar clan compounds, the Akamaiki, the Ibarum, the Uchiha, the Nara. Were those deer fighting? No, they weren't. Naruto wrenched his vision away from the 2 deer, frantically looking for something else, anything else to try and take his mind away from what he had just witnessed, and his gaze settled on the Hyuga estate, especially the room where the girl he had rescued all those years ago was sitting up, looking at him. What? Naruto slowed down, then slowly side-slipped and the girl's head turned, obviously tracking him. There was a ceiling and roof between them, yet she could see him. How the heck? He could only see her because of his armor, so. Another figure caught his attention and he winced as he recognized it. Hyuga Hiyashi, standing just outside the largest structure in the compound. And also looking at him. And motioning for him to come down. Oh hell. Hiyashi activated his Byakugan and then blinked in confusion as he watched his daughter suddenly wake up, sitting up and tilting her head up. Following her gaze, he looked up through the ceiling of his study and saw a very familiar figure, even though it was one that he hadn't seen for several years. Hiro. As he watched, Hiro slowed, then changed course, moving sideways, the angle of his head indicating that he was looking at Hinata, who in turn was looking back at him. Hiyashi frowned in thought. Hiro was obviously checking on Hinata, but why would Uzumaki Hiro? Ah, Uzumaki. Hiyashi felt his mind hiccup for a moment as he made a connection that he really should have made before. Hiro and Naruto were both Uzumaki. That meant that Hiro was the head of the Uzumaki clan as the older member, and for him to keep watch over Hinata all this time, he must be hoping for an alliance between the Hyuga and Uzumaki clans. But how did he know about the way that the elders were trying to force him to choose between Hinata and Hanabi as his heir? What was your test? Hiruzen asked as he looked out of the window, and behind him, Aoi straightened up. I tested their minds, Hokage-sama. I wished to see how they coped with both random general knowledge and problem solving, and they passed. Hiruzen nodded slowly. Any interesting observations? Making a decision, Hiyashi rose from behind his desk and strode towards the front door of the mansion. Stepping outside into the cool air, he looked up at Hiro, who was now watching him, and waved his hand, indicating the path in front of him. It was beyond time to talk. Naruto descended slowly, his mind racing in near panic. He had sparred against Neji enough to have a very healthy respect for the damage that a Hyuga could cause just through Jiyuken, and below him was the clan head himself. If anyone could shatter his armor, Hiyashi could. Naruto swallowed nervously as he landed. Oh well, it worked before. Hiyashi-sama. A pleasant night, is it not? Hiyashi stared for a moment at the armored figure, comparing him to the image engraved in his mind from when the Kumo Ambassa, the Kumo Tem, had tried to kidnap Hinata, the event inadvertently exposing the rot starting to seep into the clan. The figure hadn't changed. Every piece of armor plating was exactly the same. Indeed it is, Uzumaki Hiro. He said calmly. My apologies for interrupting your patrol of the village, but there are certain clan matters that we need to discuss. Hiro stood motionless, then slowly moved to look behind Hiyashi. A small Eep informed the clan leader that his oldest daughter was out of her room and trying to sneak up for a closer look at Hiro. Hinata, you should be asleep. Hiyashi stated without turning, although the sudden bulging of veins around his eyes showed that he was using his Byakugan. Hi, Tu-san. Hinata whispered before she vanished back through the door. Hiyashi watched her make her way back to her room, then he turned his attention back to Hiro. We need to talk, Hiro-san. Please come with me. Naruto looked round, using both his eyes and his helmet sensors as they walked through the surprisingly Spartan hallway. He had expected to see statues, paintings and tapestries lining the walls, but the hallway was completely clear, except for Hiyashi-sama. Why is there a stone in the corridor? Tradition and practice. Hiyashi replied, causing Naruto to mentally shake his head. What sort of answer was that? Hiyashi-sama. Why is there a stone in the corridor? Hiyashi was impressed despite himself. Most visitors to the Hyuga mansion were too impressed by the minimalistic perfection of the house with the skill levels implied by the lack of flaws, to comment on the incongruity of one of the training stones being located in the corridor. Tradition and practice. Hiyashi replied, waiting to see what the response would be. He wasn't disappointed. Hiro obviously understood as he made no further comment, or asked for details. Smirking inwardly, Hiyashi led Hiro to his office and reclaimed his position behind the desk. Hiro followed suit, dropping smoothly into a cross-legged pose, and Hiashi quirked a mental brow at the indication that the armor that Hiro wore wasn't quite flexible enough at the knees for him to sit in the Seiza position. And that Hiro preferred not to try and loom over a potential ally. Naruto dropped into his preferred sitting style before he noticed that Hiashi was sat more formally. Breathing a small curse under his breath, Naruto considered changing pose, then Hiashi spoke, distracting him from his quandary. It has been several years since you saved the Hyuga clan from disaster, Hiro-sama. You prevented my daughter from being kidnapped and put a halt to a plan that would have seen my WFE poisoned in such a way as to weaken me through grief. I owe you a great debt. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. Poison. Debt. Hiyashi's next words sent a jolt of terror through his veins. I have done a great deal of research into you, Hiro-sama, and I believe that I can repay you for your assistance. The Uzumaki clan were once great, standing equal to the Senju and the Uchiha, maybe even higher. That the clan is now down to just you and Uzumaki Naruto is a great shame. I propose to help you rebuild the Uzumaki clan. Naruto blinked. Rebuild? What? May I ask how? May I ask how? Hiashi hid a small smirk at the implication that unless his plan was completely against what Uzumaki Hiro believed in, it would at least be considered. First, some information, Hiashi said, watching his guest carefully. You are only the second shinobi to have a flee on-site order in the bingo books, and as of the last publications, the first to have a retreat if his presence is suspected order in one of them. Your bounty is higher than the next 3 ninja combined, and you have held your own against Uchiha Madara himself. Hiro nodded slowly. If not for your age, you would be in great demand as a marriage prospect. Hiashi added. Indeed. I had not considered that. Most ninja dislike politics, Hiashi said with a microscopic shrug. However, most people think of you as Hiro, not Uzumaki Hiro. Which leads me to Uzumaki Naruto. Hiro tilted his head in query. Rumor has it that you are training Naruto how to use the armor. As such, he will soon become the target of those who seek the armor and the power it represents. I wouldn't be surprised if the minor clans are making plans to ensnare him in a forced marriage, allowing them to claim the armor and all the Uzumaki techniques. That would not be good. Which is why I have a counter offer. Hiashi said, finally reaching the point. The elders of my clan have unearthed an ancient clan rule which dictates that should the clan head have more than one child without the seal, the council of elders can dictate which child is sealed so long as at least one is a ninja. My sources tell me that on the day that Hinata graduates, they will use the law to force me to place the caged bird seal on her and pass the position of heir to Hanabi, allowing them more time to try and mold her to their liking. With Hinata relegated to the branch house, they can then force her to abandon her shinobi career and marry her off to someone of their choosing, since the Council of Elders commands the branch family whilst I command the main family. Hiro nodded in understanding. You wish to safeguard your daughters. All of the council fear you. Your armor means that our gentle fist is useless against you. Allying with you will allow me to force the council to stop plotting against me, but as I said before, if not for your age, you would be ideal as a marriage prospect. You wish Hinata to marry Naruto. An engagement, at the very least. Hiashi admitted. Hiro sat motionless for a long moment, then slowly nodded. There is no other way. None that I can find. Hiro sagged slightly. In 3 days' time I will take Hinata to see Naruto. Hinata will make the final decision. Agreed. Hiashi said. Nice house. Thanks. Naruto grinned as Idate looked around curiously. Idate. Yugura called from the balcony, then he vaulted over the railing and dropped down to land in front of them. Great place this, isn't it? I have no idea how Naruto managed to get it. I may be an orphan, but I did have parents, however briefly. Naruto shrugged. This was once my dad's house. Naruto has the main bedroom and is the lodger, I have the smaller one. Yugura said, indicating the upper doors. Where does that end door go? The side balcony. Yugura shrugged. Kitchen and dining room are through there while the door to the bathroom is there. It's a small house, but I like it. Naruto grinned and Idate gave him a look. It's as big as the house my brother and I share. Idate protested. In fact, it might be even bigger. Food's ready. Another Naruto called from the kitchen and Idate blinked in surprise. You use your clones for chores. Can I learn that technique? It requires a lot of chakra. Naruto said as he led his teammates through to the table. Most Jonin can make maybe 3 or 4. I'm a chakra monster. He is. Yugura nodded. Oh, that was amazing. Idate sighed as he collapsed onto the end of the sectional couch. Naruto laughed, then dragged a chair over and sat in it, facing the other two. Tsuki gave me cooking lessons in exchange for me using my clones to help out at his stand. Naruto grinned, then he turned serious. Since you're here, there's something that you need to know, S-class secrets that you are cleared for, but which you cannot tell anyone else. Yugura, tell me about the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Yugura closed his eyes and frowned as he dredged up some of the lessons from the academy. One of the 9-tailed beasts and the strongest, attacked Konoha without warning 11 years ago and was killed by the Yondaime at the cost of his life. Very good, and wrong. Naruto said, catching both of their undivided attention. The Kyuubi was used against Konoha by Madara soon after the founding, but Madara was confronted by Senju Hiroshima and his wife, Uzumaki Mito, at the Valley of the End. During the battle, Hiroshima used his Mokoten to weaken the Kyuubi, then Mito used her knowledge of Uzumaki Fuinjutsu to seal the Kyuubi away inside herself, turning herself into the first of the 3 Konoha Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. With the loss of his greatest weapon, Madara fled. Idate and Yugura were barely breathing as Naruto told them the story. As Mito aged, she came to fear the consequences of unleashing the Kyuubi, so, at her request, Uzushiogakure sent a kunoichi named Uzumaki Kushina, since only an Uzumaki could survive holding the Kyuubi. Mito used her skills to transfer the Kyuubi into Kushina, making her the second carrier of the Kyuubi. Becoming a ninja, Kushina fell in love and got married. However, the seal of a female Jinchuriki weakens when she gives birth, so when the time came, she traveled to a secret cave outside Konoha. Naruto paused, remembering the day he had found the file that explained the events of his birth. She was discovered and attacked by a rogue Uchiha calling himself Tobi. The Kyuubi was ripped from her, mortally wounding her. She used the last of her life force to restrain the Kyuubi while the Yondaime Hokage used his knowledge of seals to once again bind the Kyuubi, sealing it into her newborn son. Idate froze while Yugura inhaled sharply. The reason that I am hated by so many is that they hold me responsible for the attack. If I had not been born, the seal would not have weakened and the Kyuubi would not have escaped. Others believe that I died when the Kyuubi was sealed into me, that the Kyuubi walks amongst them wearing the corpse of Kushina's son. They are wrong, but they cling to that hatred because as long as they do, as long as they deny I am human, they are justified in hating me. They warn their children to avoid me, to shun me and to push me away, and so I grew up lonely, abandoned and not knowing why, until I discovered a file that told me who I truly was, who my parents were and why so many hated me. For a long moment, no one spoke, then Idate broke the silence. Then they're idiots. My brother said that he believed that you could become Hokage someday, he wouldn't have said that if you were the Kyuubi. What he said without the brother bit. Yugura said with a nod. And Naruto, thanks. Naruto blinked. Thanks. For trusting us. Yugura explained. It can't have been easy. It wasn't. Naruto admitted. But it was worth it. Hinata stood outside the front door of the main house in the Hyuga compound, her Byakugan active as she scanned the skies for her hero. Beside her, Hiyashi stood with a slight smirk on his face. There he is. Hinata gasped as a familiar form entered her visual range and Hiyashi briefly activated his own Byakugan to confirm his daughter's exclamation. A moment later, Hiro lightly touched down in front of them and bowed slightly. Hinata-san, it is good to see that you are well. Hinata blushed, then stepped forwards, her gaze rising to meet that of Hiro. Hiro-sama, I never thanked you for saving me from. Hiro placed a finger against her lips and behind her, Hiyashi raised an eyebrow. Hinata-san, I did what I did because it was the right thing to do. Hiyashi-sama, with your permission. Of course, but please bring her back by dusk. Hiro bowed, then scooped Hinata up into his arms, ignoring her. Eep. Rising into the air, he flew towards the Hokage monument, checking the ground below to see that they weren't being followed. Crossing the ridge, Hiro swooped down and looped round, aiming for a small cave on the rear side of the small mountain, a cave almost completely concealed by the tree that grew next to it. Slowing down just enough to avoid the branches, since they would hurt Hinata if he went through like he normally did, Hiro flew down the short passage and over the underground reservoir that fed most of the civilian portions of Konoha, then into another cave, this one concealed by a fold in the rock. Within moments, Hiro emerged into the main hall of his secret base and touched down lightly before lowering Hinata to the ground. Welcome to the Uzumaki refuge. Hiro said as Hinata looked around curiously. You are only the third person to see this place. Was Naruto the second? Hinata asked and Hiro shook his head. The Hokage was the second. I was the first. Hinata blinked. What? But I thought I saw Naruto go down that passage. You saw a clone of Naruto. Hiro said, stepping backwards. And this is the first secret you must keep, for I am Naruto. Hinata's eyes widened to almost comical levels as the armor vanished and Naruto dropped to the ground. But, your hero. I am. Naruto agreed. I didn't know that there was such a person as Uzumaki Hero when I chose my code name on the day I found the armor and accidentally bonded to it. Does that mean it was you who saved me? Naruto nodded, then suddenly he was catapulted backwards as Hinata glomped him. Landing on the ground, Naruto froze as Hinata babbled her thanks while crying, then he started stroking her hair in the hopes it would help her calm down. After several minutes, Hinata sniffed and let go of him, rolling off so that she could sit up and pull out a tissue to wipe her eyes. Sorry, she whispered. Sorry. But why does everyone think you're Uzumaki Hero? Darned if I know. Naruto shrugged as he moved to sit next to Hinata, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. I've been trying to work it out, but I can't. I think I've accidentally pranked the world. Hinata giggled and Naruto rose to his feet, offering her his hand. Come on, let me show you round, then we can talk. To once again bind the Kyuubi, sealing it into her newborn son. Me. Naruto finished and Hinata stared at him. The red chakra, she breathed in Naruto an eyebrow. The what? When I use my Byakugan, I can see a ball of red chakra just here in you. She said, touching just below her navel. And in your armor, there are red flecks of chakra. Naruto paused. Really? Hinata nodded and Naruto stared at his own stomach. Wow. Just, wow. This might explain why no Hyuga has ever called me demon, they can see it's in me, but isn't me. Hinata nodded in return. It's linked to you by a really complicated swirl that changes most of the chakra from red to blue. So, the reason I have tons of chakra is because of the Kyuubi. Naruto breathed. Wow. No wonder I can create all those clones. For a long moment, they remained quiet, Then Naruto half turned to accept a scroll from a clone that had just entered the room. Just finished copying them, boss. The clone said before poofing into a cloud of smoke, and Naruto turned back to Hinata. You said that you had problems with Gyuken. In my library there were quite a few scrolls on Gyuken and a version called Yuho that was created by a member of the branch house about 40 years ago, but was suppressed and thrown out because it threatened Gyuken users. This scroll contains copies of those scrolls that were thrown out when the creator, Hyuga Mishima, died. You might find them useful. Hinata accepted the scroll, looking at it almost reverently, then she tucked it away into an inside jacket pocket. And it's getting late, so I think it's time for me to take you home. Naruto smiled. If you want to talk, feel free to come to my home anytime. Thank you. Hinata whispered, and Naruto's smile widened. It feels good, having someone other than Gigi to talk to about this. He admitted. Now stand back and, armor on. As he finished, Naruto leapt into the air where a sphere of energy surrounded him before his armor appeared in flashes of light and slid into position round him. Hiro landed and Hinata stared up at him in awe. May I? Hinata nodded and Hiro scooped her up, letting her snuggle against him even as he rose into the air. Where were you? Yugura asked as Naruto entered the house, and Naruto blushed slightly. Was it a girl? Naruto nodded and Yugura draped his arm over Naruto's shoulder. Really? Was she nice? She is. Naruto mumbled. I'm engaged to her. Yugura froze and Naruto slipped out of his grasp as he thought it through. What? Really? Engaged? You? Who is she? Hyuga Hinata. Naruto began, only for Yugura to cut him off. A Hyuga? The Hyuga heiress. How? Long story and most of it's classified. Naruto offered, causing Yugura to sag. Damn. S-class? Yep. Like that, Yugura trailed off, giving a meaningful glance at Naruto's stomach, and Naruto nodded again. Yep. I hate secrets like that. Yugura grumped. Good news. Aoi said as he strode into the training field where all three genin were performing their various warm-ups. Today, we finally get AC rank. Aoi waited for the cheers to die down before continuing. Come on, let's pick up the scroll and find out what we are doing. I said it before and I'll say it again. Naruto grinned. Best sensei ever. Thank you, but we should get going. Aoi smiled. In fact, let's practice our branch leaping and roof jumping on the way there. Everyone, go. The three genin launched themselves into the trees around the training field, and Aoi chuckled as he vanished in a shunshin. Heya, Gigi. Naruto yelled as he somersaulted through the window, only to hit the ground and roll straight into the wall. Ooh, www. Gotta work on those landings. Idate paused in the window before swinging himself down onto the floor, making way for Yugura. I thought that I was fast. He laughed, walking over to help Naruto to his feet. You okay, Chibi? Naruto glared up at Idate, the older genin smirking over the 3-inch height difference between them, and Yugura laughed. Oh, why didn't I come up with that? Chibi. Ha. Before Naruto could do more than glower at his teammates, Aoi stepped out of the corner of the room and placed a calming hand on Naruto's shoulder. They're just teasing you in a friendly way, he said quietly. Don't worry about it. Hokage-sama, Team 4 reporting for AC rank mission, if one is available. Of course. Hiruzen smiled, then he turned and let his hand drift across several scrolls before stopping. Here we go, a message delivery. You will take a scroll and deliver it to a team of Suna ninja at the border between the Land of Wind and the Land of Rivers. No fighting expected, but be on the lookout for spies and non-Suna ninja. Hiruzen handed the scroll over to Aoi, then 2 more scrolls. Here is the scroll to be delivered and a copy of the permission granted for Konoha shinobi to travel through Kawa no Kuni. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Aoi bowed, then he turned to his team. Alright. Using branch leaping, the border is less than a week away, but we'll go via Tanzanuka quarters to ensure we get at least one night in comfortable beds each way. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Naruto laughed and both Idate and Jaeger joined in as he finished. Best sensei ever. Aoi shook his head as Hiruzen chuckled. Alright, you brats have embarrassed me enough. Pack for a fortnight-long mission and meet me at the main gate in 2 hours. Go. 3 blurs exited the office through the window and Aoi grinned after them, then sobered. Hokage-sama, who will I be meeting? Team Baki. Hiruzen said. Be careful, the genin of that team are the 3 children of the Kazekage and the youngest is the holder of the Ikibi. I understand. Aoi mused. If you will excuse me. Of course. Whoa. Naruto said as they stepped through the main gate. This is the first time I've been out of Konoha since just after I was born. Me too. Yugura admitted, then they both turned to Idate. My brother once took me to the capital because he had a mission and no one was available to look after me. Idate shrugged. C-rank missions and above will almost always take you outside Konoha. Aoi explained from behind them. Of course, you only really need to worry about personal safety on B ranks and above, but you won't be tasked with doing them until you hit Chunin, unless something goes very wrong. And if it does, that's what I'm here for. Thanks, sensei, Yugura said and Aoi walked past them, motioning for them to follow. We'll take the road until we reach the first milestone, then we change course and take to the trees. We should reach Tanzuka quarters by evening, assuming we don't run into trouble, but as ninja, we should never assume things until we can confirm them. What problems might we face? Bandits, nuke nin, enemy nin, Naruto began, then he paused and Idate took over. Rotten branches, rivers, lakes, disturbed wildlife. Excellent. Aoi said, turning to grin approvingly at them. Not all problems come from hostile actions, some are just things that are unfortunate or annoying. There are a couple of rivers we'll have to cross and since I haven't actually taught you water walking yet. I know it. Naruto interjected and Aoi gave him a quizzical glance. I've got so much chakra that I needed extra exercises to keep it under control. That simplifies things. Idate, since you're smaller than Yugura, Naruto can carry you across the rivers while I carry Yugura. Once we finish this mission, I'll make sure you can water walk. My apologies for not teaching it to you already. Sounds like fun. Idate shrugged. Good. Aoi said. Now, once we reach Tanzuka quarters, there's a couple of secondary missions that I need to do, so Yugura'll be in charge in my absence, unless you have any objections. Nope. It's cool. I'll do my best. Good. Now, we really should be getting a move on, so let's start running. Remember to pace yourselves and ration your use of chakra as you move. Should we use our flames of youth? Naruto snarked and Aoi shuddered. How did you know? When did you meet Maida Guy? If I'd been Rookie of the Year, he'd have been my sensei. Naruto shrugged. I checked to see what sort of sensei he was. He's a lunatic. That he is. Aoi sighed. Then again, the further you rise up the ranks, the more you'll need something to offset the stress of the job. Such as? Idate prompted. Well, I paint, Hitaki Kakashi reads, Maida Guy screams about youth, Nara Shikaku sleeps, then again, all Nara males do that whenever they can, most clan ninja go for whatever their clans are famous for, kind of a reinforcing loop. Let's see who else there is. Tanzuka quarters. Aoi exclaimed as he indicated the town that was illuminated in the deepening dusk. Behind him, his three genin stumbled out of the tree line and staggered up to join him. Erg, I thought I had stamina, Naruto gasped. My legs, I can't feel my legs. Idate moaned while Yagura chose instead to simply drop onto his knees, gasping for air. I did push you harder than I planned. Aoi admitted. I hadn't equally expected to arrive here until tomorrow, but now that we are, let's get a couple of rooms and use one of the onsens to relax. Yagura pushed himself back to his feet and started to stagger forwards, Idate and Naruto following him. Most evil sensei ever. Naruto grumbled and Aoi chuckled briefly before turning to follow his team. Aoi slipped out of the hotel after sending his three genin to get changed and relax in the heated pool. Walking down the main street, he ducked into a bar and stopped at the counter. One bottle of sake, he said to the bartender. I need some memory poison. Interesting weather outside. The barkeep noted and Aoi shrugged. I always carry an umbrella in case it hails. The barkeeper nodded and then gave a significant glance at one of the booths where a cloaked figure was sipping. Aoi walked over to him and the figure glanced up, his glasses catching the light. Rokushu. Yukushi. Aoi replied as he sat down and the cloaked figure briefly caressed the underside of the table. Privacy seals active. Yukushi Kabuto said. Do you have the information? All the details of the most recent graduating class and the other requested documents. Aoi confirmed, rolling a small scroll across the table. Kabuto palmed it and slipped it into his sleeve. Anything interesting? I have Team 4, including Ibiki's brother and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Aoi said quietly and Kabuto's brows rose. You have Uzumaki Naruto as one of your genin. Interesting. Have you met his great-uncle yet, or seen the armor? No to both. Aoi sighed. The Hokage has all the information under a level 10 classification and since I'm not the Hokage. True. Kabuto agreed. Hokage level classification, well, that tells me where to look, at least. This is worth another 1,000 ryo in your escape account. Good. Aoi said before sipping his sake. Have you heard from Yumiko? She sends her love and eagerly awaits the day you can join her. Kabuto smiled. As I look forwards to leaving Konoha and joining her. Aoi agreed. To a megakure. To aim. Kabuto replied, raising his sake dish in salute. Naruto sighed with pleasure as he lowered himself into the hot pool. Opposite him, Idate was so relaxed that he was almost boneless while Yagura was finishing rinsing himself off. A noise distracted Naruto and he turned to see a towel-clad white-haired man crouched by the fence that separated the male and female bathing areas. Although Naruto couldn't quite make out his face, he spotted the notepad in the man's hand. What the? Naruto whispered in confusion, then realization dawned on him. He's spying on the women. Hush. The pervert shot at him before putting his eye back to the knothole in the fence. Ooh, the on her are so magnificent. Glancing round, Naruto grabbed an abandoned towel and, remembering one trick that a bully at the orphanage took great delight in inflicting on him, he dunked it in the water before spinning it into a whip. Pulling himself onto the surface of the pool, he checked his grip, then lunged forwards, the towel whistling as he swung it at the pervert's backside. Hey! The man yelped as he leapt sideways, the notepad flying from his hand and Naruto blinked as the pad arced up and over the fence. No. My research. What is this? A voice asked and the pervert turned so pale that the red lines under his eyes almost seemed to leap from his skin. Hey! I recognize this handwriting. Kur-chan. Oh crap. The white-haired man whimpered. I gotta go. Jiraiya. A massed chorus rose from the other side. Die. Naruto flung himself backwards, landing on the water as a section of the fence was flattened and a half-dozen towel-clad kunoichi of various ages charged through, kunai or other weapons gripped in their hands. One was even holding a sword, causing Naruto to mentally question where it could have been kept. Senjutsu Shujuku. Niguru. The old pervert yelped before vanishing in a blur of motion, all but one of the kunoichi following him with screams of rage. The only one that didn't glanced round as she brushed back her dark hair back, the lanterns catching it to make it seem like it had blue highlights. Her gaze fell on the towel whip that Naruto was holding and she smirked at him. So, you're the one we can thank for exposing the old pervert. She grinned. You have guts to take on one of the Sannin, kid, wait, I've seen you before. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto almost straightened up before realizing that his wrap was loose. Instead, he simply stopped channeling chakra and dropped into the pool as the woman laughed. Don't worry, you've got nothing I haven't seen before. I'm Mitarashi Anko, newly promoted Tobesku Jonin. If you're here then there should be 2 more brats. Hey, Idate-kun. Anko-san. Idate replied, looking anywhere but at her while blushing furiously. Still shy, are you? Anko laughed. You really should get over that. Hey, kids, Anko. Aoi came to a halt in the doorway, staring at her, then his gaze traveled past her to where a section of the fence was shattered. What the? You missed all the fun. Anko giggled. Foxy-kun here helped us chase away a perverted moron. Well, time to see if they caught him. Who did what now? Aoi muttered as Anko sauntered off. Good morning, Aoi said from the door, his smile turning into a grin as his 3 genin started to pull themselves out of bed. Good news, we're still ahead of schedule. Bad news, we're heading out after breakfast, so you have 5 minutes to get dressed. The 3 genin sat up and started to pull on their clothes as Aoi closed the door. I'm not sore. Yugura noted in surprise. That hot soap did wonders. I came across some heating seals a while ago. Naruto mused as he picked up his trousers and shook them out. I can dig out an outdoors onsen and redirect the spring into it once we finish this mission. Good idea. Yugura agreed. I'll help, it'll be good exercise. Actually, I was thinking of, oof. Idate shook his head as Naruto rolled onto his back and pulled on his trousers before standing up again. I'm ready, Idate announced and the other 2 stared at him. What? My brother trained me in how to get dressed fast, he said that slow ninja were dead ninja. Naruto and Yugura exchanged glances before resuming donning their clothes. Alright, we'll go slower this time. Aoi said with a smile as they began leaping through the treetops. By pacing ourselves, we should make it to the first border ahead of schedule, but not too early. So, what was all that fuss about yesterday? Naruto attacked a pervert. Yugura supplied. Someone called Jiraiya. Jiraiya, Aoi repeated, his eyes wide. You don't mean the white-haired sage of Toad Mountain? One of the 3 who managed to survive in combat against Hanzo the Salamander. Yep, Idate confirmed. I've seen his picture before. Big Brother insists that I know all of the important shinobi in Konoha on site. Idate glanced to his left, where Naruto had just launched himself off a branch. Who are you again? Naruto gaped at him for a moment, then started to laugh. Okay, you got me. Yugura snorted with laughter for a moment, the Aoi coughed to get their attention. Since this is going to be a long journey, I think I could help it along by telling you about the team that Jiraiya was on. The team itself was Team 7, led by Sarutobi Hiruzen before he became the Hokage, and the 3 genin were Orochimaru, Jiraiya and Senju Tsunade, 2 orphans and a clan princess. Orochimaru was noted as being a genius even when he was at the academy, while Jiraiya was known for his willingness to work hard and his observational skills. Halt. As the girl's voice shouted the command, Aoi, Idate and Yugura landed on the same branch before Aoi snagged Naruto from the air, preventing him from overshooting. Ah, haha, air, thanks, sensei. Naruto mumbled as Aoi set him down. I assume that I am addressing a shinobi of Tanagakure. You are. The voice replied. We are Team 4 from Konohagakure on a routine message delivery mission to the Land of Wind. Aoi continued. As per the treaty between Tanagakure and Konohagakure, I ask for permission to cross the Land of Rivers. Will you escort us? There was a long silence, then a teenage girl stepped out from behind a tree. On her forehead was a hitai that boasted a square beneath a chevron with 2 additional lines. Her face was covered with a green veil that left only her brown eyes visible while her clothing was mottled green and brown, letting her blend into the background with ease. She is a Tanagakure hunter nin. Aoi said, speaking quietly, but loud enough that she could hear. Do not ask her for her name or anything like that. While on duty she has no name, only a mission. You have permission, but you will be observed. The girl stated, then she seemed to fade back into the forest. How did she do that? Naruto burst out. Was it a jutsu? Pure skill. Aoi corrected. Tanagakure hunter nin are renowned for their stealth, their ability to send complex messages across vast distances almost instantaneously, and the fact that they use as little chakra as possible, making it almost impossible for sensor nin to detect them. However, this tends to limit how much chakra they can use in battle since they don't train to expand their chakra reservoirs like we do. Wow. Naruto breathed. I gotta get some clothes like those. Did you see how cool they looked? I wonder if I can get some with orange in them. Come on. Aoi said, crouching and gathering chakra in preparation. We need to get going. And since we're now in another nation, we remain alert. But they're allies, right? Naruto asked, but it was Idate who answered. Even allies keep a close eye on each other, Naruto. If you use a jutsu that they haven't seen before, they will try to copy it so that they can use it themselves if they deem it necessary. Brother says that they even have a few puppeteers amongst their number, something that they developed from observing the Suna puppet corps. Really? Naruto asked as they launched themselves off the branch. How can a puppet help in battle? Won't the strings get in the way? They use chakra threads. Aoi said, glancing round. I'll explain after the mission. Now, let's get going, we need to be at the rendezvous in 2 days. Behind them, the hunter nin watched them depart, then ran up to the top of the tree. Pulling out a small mirror, she angled it to send a series of flashes, sending her message faster than any ninja could hope to move. Dot. The desert spread beyond the line of trees and Naruto frowned. Sensei, I know I've never actually seen a desert before, but, shouldn't there be more sand? Quite a bit of the desert is sand, but almost as much as rocky plains, which is where much of the sand comes from. Aoi said, motioning to the broken ground. The Suna shinobi encourage the proliferation of sand because it slows down any shinobi that doesn't know the sand walking exercise. Before you ask, Naruto, it's similar to water walking but uses a lot less chakra. Suna also has the highest number of wind users of the elemental nations, both as a fraction of their forces and in total, and the sand helps to make wind attacks do more damage, either through abrasion or by blasting sand into enemy eyes, thus blinding them temporarily. An excellent summary. A new voice stated and 4 shapes appeared in front of them within a swirl of sand. Jonin Baki, I presume? Aoi asked as the whirlwind of sand died down and the tallest figure stepped forwards. Jonin Rokushu. The man said in return, his lone uncovered eye flickering across the group. And your team are Morino Idate, Yaguro and Uzumaki Naruto, genin of Konohagakure. Aoi said politely. Baki nodded, then motioned to the trio behind him, 2 of whom had quietly edged away from the third, a red-headed boy carrying a large gourd on his back. Tamari, Kankuro and Gaara. Baki stated. I assume that you have the message. May I have the code first? Aoi countered and Baki grinned, the veil covering half his face twitching slightly as he snorted in amusement. Koda's desert winds carry the leaf gently. The dark-clad boy with the purple face paint and a wrapped package on his back rolled his eyes and Naruto strained his hearing to catch his comment. What a pathetic code. Here is the scroll, Aoi said, then he produced a piece of paper. Please sign. Baki accepted the scroll, pulled out a pen and signed the paper, then he froze as Gaara spoke in a monotone that somehow conveyed great bloodthirst. Mother wants blood. She wants the fox. Kankuro and Tamari turned pale, then glanced at each other in confusion, but Aoi reacted even faster, spinning to face Naruto. Run! Naruto leapt backwards and summoned 100 clones. Half of them charged at Gaara and were promptly engulfed by a wave of sand while the others scattered, running in so many directions that not even a skilled tracker nin could have determined where the real Naruto had gone. Gaara snarled as he turned to face the other Konoha ninja. If I cannot take the blood of the fox, I will take yours. Gaara. Don't. Baki shouted as the gourd on Gaara's back seemed to explode into a wave of sand that tore up the ground and rushed at Team 4. Aoi drew his umbrella, but before he could unfurl it in a doomed attempt to block the sand tsunami, a ball of something smashed through the rising wave, sucking in almost a quarter of the sand and passing close enough to Gaara to pull him off his feet before it dissipated. What was that? Gaara muttered as he pulled himself back to his feet. Who did that? Who did that? I did. A new, metallic voice answered and everyone's gaze snapped to the treeline where an armored figure was standing. Uzumaki hero. Baki gasped, the exposed portion of his face losing all color. The cage killer, Gaara, stand down. Hero could easily defeat your father if he wanted to, you don't stand a chance. Gaara froze, allowing Aoi, Idate and Yagura to retreat to the treeline. Go. Hero said to the Konoha ninja. I will guard your retreat, then find and bring Naruto to you. Aoi nodded and motioned for Yagura and Idate to follow him as he vanished into the trees and Hero turned his attention back to Gaara. I give you this warning, do not attack. Listen to him, Gaara. Baki yelled in barely restrained panic. He's got a flee on sight order, if you fight him, you'll die. Gaara glared at Hero for several long minutes, then the sand around him began to move, flowing back to Gaara and reforming into a gourd. We are leaving. Gaara stated before he turned and strode away. Baki watched him go, then turned back to find that Hero had vanished. Giving a shudder of relief, he turned to follow his most problematical genin, reflecting on his narrow escape. Was that really Hero? Yagura gasped as he landed beside his sensei, the adrenaline that had kept them going for the last hour finally wearing off. It was. Aoi replied. The deadliest ninja you will ever meet, with a kill count in the hundreds. Kumo upgraded their flee on sight order to a flee if you suspect he is in the area, warning on him. I've heard about him. Idate called as he landed on a nearby branch. My brother has amassed quite a file on him, both during his days in Uzushiogakure and after he showed up in Konoha. All three ninja froze as the being they were talking about descended into view. Where is Naruto? He is safe and will be waiting for you at Tanzuka quarters. Hero said. I am here to take you back to Konoha's border. Aoi blinked. What? Sensei of Uzumaki, climb onto my back and hold tight. Hero said as he drifted over to the two genin and picked them up, one under each arm. Aoi stared at him, then shrugged. All right, he said as he carefully positioned himself, reinforcing his grip with chakra. So, what happens now? A AAA Rahoa. Hero rocketed upwards through the gap in the canopy and erupted into the open air. Pausing just long enough to orient himself, he accelerated until the forest below was nothing more than a green blur. This is cool. Idate yelled. Tanzuka quarters. Aoi said as they looked down from the crest of the hill at the town that was glinting in the sunlight. Thank goodness that Hiro-san dropped us so close, but where is Aoi-sensei? Idate. Yugura. A familiar voice shouted and everyone turned to see Naruto running up to them. Hiro lied. Naruto pouted. He said he'd drop you off in the clearing back there. Well, we're all here, so let's head into town. Aoi said with a smile. I don't know about you, but after all that flying and running, I need a good soak and a good night's sleep. Naruto, how did you get here so fast? Hiro flies faster when he's only carrying one, but I had to cover several miles. Naruto shrugged. Come on, let's get going. Aoi shook his head, mentally tallying the distance they had traveled and how fast Hiro would have had to go in order to drop Naruto off and double back to meet them. Actually, how had he found them? The canopy would have hidden them from the sight of anyone above them. Oh well, it was a problem for another time. Damn, I need a drink. Aoi walked over to the booth where a familiar cloaked figure was sipping. As he approached, the figure glanced up, his glasses catching the light. Rokushu. Yukushi. Aoi replied as he sat down and the cloaked figure briefly caressed the underside of the table. Privacy seals active. Yukushi Kabuto said. You're back earlier than expected, given your mission. I expected to meet you back in Konoha. We were helped by Hiro. Aoi stated and Kabuto froze. Hiro. Are you certain? You know another flying armored figure with a high collar and metallic voice? Aoi snarked. It was him. He faced down soon as Jinchuriki fired some sort of ball that sucked up almost a ton of sand before evaporating. Interesting, Kabuto mused. I had not heard of that ability. How did he fire it? I don't know since I was facing the wrong way, but from his pose, I think he threw it. Aoi shrugged. It was only 3 hours ago. Kabuto blinked. What? Hiro flew us back. For a moment, Kabuto simply stared at him, his jaw dropped, then he shook his head. So he can fly with a full team and still move faster than any normal shinobi. He murmured. That armor is obviously the masterwork of a fuinjutsu genius. While I was being carried, I had a chance to think. Aoi said. Hiro must be getting close to death, it would explain why he is expanding his range. He wants to increase the reputation of his armor so that when he hands it over to Naruto, it'll give him even more of an advantage. A reasonable theory. Kabuto agreed slowly. So, we can use that. Aoi said with a smirk. If we use a poison threat on Naruto, something that the demon inside him can't cure, Hiro will almost certainly swap his armor for the cure. After all, Naruto is the only other Uzumaki. There is at least one more that I am aware of, but please, continue. Kabuto commented and Aoi raised a quizzical eyebrow. Anyway, I was going to try to grab the Raijin when I defect, but I had a better idea. Turn it into a training mission. Kabuto raised an eyebrow and Aoi grinned. It'll be easier with help, but my team is designated an ambush and infiltration unit. I can probably get the Hokage to agree to do some missions testing clan compound defenses and giving reports. Once I find out where the Raijin is kept. It is in the same room as the Forbidden Scroll. Kabuto supplied. I can get a map for you, showing exactly where. Excellent. Aoi grinned. Then once we have several test missions completed and people are getting used to it, I get permission to test shinobi buildings like the Anbu headquarters. And the Hokage Tower. Kabuto finished. That plan has promise. But what about your genin? By the time they realize, we'll be out of Konoha and they'll either join a Megakure with me, or be forced to become Nuke Nin. I'll prepare things so that if any of them don't go with you, they'll be the ones who get blamed. Kabuto chuckled. To aim. Aoi laughed, raising his sake dish. To aim. Kabuto echoed. At last, Konoha. Yugura grinned as they emerged onto the road leading up to the giant wooden gates set in the wall that marked the boundary of the village. Beside the gates and looking slightly undersized by comparison was an open-fronted hut that Aoi led them to. Team 4 returning from C-rank messenger mission to Kei's no Kuni. He said, and one of the two chunin inside the hut nodded as he noted the information down. Rokushu Aoi, Morino Idate, Yugura, Uzumaki Naruto returning from C-rank message delivery relaying message to Suna, correct. Aoi nodded and the chunin turned the clipboard around. Sign here please. Aoi picked up the pen and scribbled his signature at the bottom of the page and the chunin nodded as he reclaimed the board. Head to the Hokage Tower and report in. Understood. Aoi said with a respectful nod. Come on, team. Do we get ramen afterwards? Naruto asked and Aoi sighed. That's your answer to everything, isn't it? Aoi, Team 4. Hiruzen nodded as Aoi led the three genin into the office. I didn't expect you back for several more days. Did something happen? You could say that, sir. Aoi agreed. We traveled to meeting point 17 via Tanzuka quarters. On the way through the land of rivers, we were intercepted by a Tani hunter nin who confirmed that we could proceed. We made our way across the land of rivers until we reached our designated rendezvous where we encountered Team Baki. Team Baki. Hiruzen repeated. That would be Jonin Baki and the three children of the Kei's cage, would it not? Or has the lineup changed? It hasn't and I observed them carefully. Aoi confirmed. Tamari is a kunoichi who I believe uses a war fan that she carries on her back, making her a wind-natured type. Kankuro was carrying a wrapped bundle on his back, I believe him to be a puppeteer. Gaara was carrying a gourd of sand on his back and showed significant mental instability. I believe him to be a Jinchuriki. My agent's reports agree. Hiruzen nodded. Continue. The handover went without a hitch and Baki signed for the scroll, then Gaara declared, and I quote, Mother wants blood. She wants the fox. I instantly ordered Naruto to run and he did so, but not before generating over 100 cage bunshin to act as a diversion. Hiruzen gave a smile of acknowledgement at Naruto, who straightened up, grinning with pride. Deprived of his primary target, Gaara moved to attack us, only for a new ninja to enter the battlefield, Uzumaki Hero. He single-handedly stopped Gaara in his tracks and covered our escape. An hour later, he located us and used his flight power to carry us almost all the way to Tanzuka quarters, where Naruto rejoined us, having been brought there earlier by Hiro-sama. We remained there for the night in order to recover and then returned. I do not know what happened to Hiro-sama, he departed after dropping us off. I must note that Hiro-sama displayed a previously unknown technique in the confrontation. I wrote the details on this scroll so that I would not forget. Hiruzen accepted the small scroll with a nod of thanks. Congratulations on a successful mission, Team 4. As you engaged in combat and returned unscathed to provide information, I am adding a bonus to your paychecks. Naruto, I'll want to talk to you later, so come back in an hour. Okay. Gigi. Ramen time. Naruto cheered before Yugura grabbed him in a headlock, hand clapped over his mouth, while Idate grabbed his legs. You three are dismissed. Hiruzen chuckled and Naruto tried to complain through the muffling hand as his teammates carried him out of the office. As the door closed behind them, Hiruzen's genial expression faded. Tell me about this new technique. So, you have all had a chance to check out the area. Aoi said as he sat in front of his team, all of whom were holding notepads. In front of them all was a rough map of the Uchiha compound. Thoughts? The target scroll is here. Naruto said, pointing to an apparently inoffensive building on the map. Seeing the others staring at him, he shrugged. What? I sent in a couple of dozen cage bunshin which were hanged as rats to scout out the area. I didn't think that henge worked that way, Aoi began, then he shook his head. We'll discuss that after the mission. So, we have a target. This route seems to provide the most cover, Hyuga began and Naruto shook his head. Nope. They have concealed lookout points here and here which cover these areas. Aoi stared at his youngest genin. How do you know? I'm going to be Hokage someday, so I have to know as much as possible about Konoha, right? Huh. I guess so, Aoi finally replied. Alright, so how would you go about getting the scroll from here, without using that henge of yours? Limit yourself to standard genin skills for this mission. Sure. Naruto mused. Well, this area on this side has the most patrols, but the sewer passes under the path the sentries use. Even the Sharingan can't see through solid rock, and although there are detection seals here and here, there's a manhole cover just here. Aoi watched in bemused amazement as Naruto plotted out the mission. Fugaku froze in the doorway, his gaze transfixed by the blue and red scroll that was sitting almost inoffensively on the Hokage's desk. Is something the matter? Hiruzen smirked and Fugaku staggered forwards, allowing Hiashi to step round him. I have a copy of the report here for you, Fugaku. Hiruzen continued, passing over a folder to the nearly catatonic clan head. I would advise reading it and upgrading your security accordingly, especially the sewers. Hiashi smirked at his fellow advisor's discomfiture. I always thought that your eyes were overrated. The Byakugan is known as the all-seeing eye for a reason. Hiruzen held out the scroll and Hiashi blinked. Hokage-sama, let's see if your clan does better. Of course. Hiashi said, accepting the scroll. What are the rules? The Hyuga are hard to get past because their eyes can see in all directions and can see chakra. Naruto said. However, their range is somewhat limited. Most of the adults can't see beyond 100 meters or so when they use their eyes, and it drains their chakra, so they only use it for battle or in brief periods. Those of them who become ninja can train to cover ranges of 1 kilometer or more, but the sheer amount of things they see often causes them to overlook stuff. Like the Sharingan, they can't really see through ground. 2 meters at most. You really know your stuff. Idate said in awe. What's your plan? Diversion. Naruto said almost instantly. We give them something sneaky to stare at so that they won't notice a single person strolling in wearing a Hyuga-style robe and retrieving the scroll. Aoi shook his head in amazed disbelief. Naruto, that. We need to dye your hair. What? Why? So you look more like a Hyuga, of course. Hiashi froze in the doorway, his gaze transfixed by the blue and red scroll that was sitting almost inoffensively on the Hokage's desk. Is something the matter? Hiruzen smirked and Hiashi shook his head as he collected himself before moving into the office and sitting down, carefully ignoring the smirk of his fellow advisor. May I ask for a quick overview? He asked. I was certain that we had seen off the attempt that they made to infiltrate our compound. You mean the distraction? Hiashi paused as he processed Hiruzen's comment, then face-palmed. Of course, I'll take the folder now. Here. Hiruzen smirked. Don't feel too bad, I'm having them test the security of the other clans and several other places as well. I look forwards to hearing them complain. Fugaku said with an answering smirk. It'll be somewhat reassuring to know that we weren't the only ones who have become lax. We'll hit the Nara compound at 1:30 in the afternoon. Idate, you'll need to place your hair in a topknot for this to work. The Aburame have a very effective natural detection system in their Kikai. However, their Kikai are almost addicted to sugar water, so placing large dishes of it here and here will reduce the bugs in this area, allowing us to sneak through. It won't last long, so we'll need to move fast. The Rina clan is renowned for its medical practitioners, which is why most choose to become med-nin rather than actual shinobi. Although they are targeted in battle by those wishing to steal their skills, they tend to rely purely on village security during peace, making them one of the more vulnerable clans, on the surface. However, as Med-Nin, they can easily take you apart, so we cannot afford to be seen by any of them. The Yamanaka clan have a relatively small inner compound surrounded by flower fields. The flowers are arranged in rows, so we can wriggle through them using the irrigation trenches to reach this point. The Sarutobi clan are renowned for their stubbornness. Once they decide on a course of action, you have to prove that they are wrong before they change. We need to get them looking for an external threat, then we can use the escape tunnel that they think is secret to get into their compound. Once inside, we'll be relatively safe. The Kurama clan use genjutsu to hide their clan compound, while their sentries use their own genjutsu to remain concealed. However, much of their genjutsu is primarily visual, meaning that going in at night and using a blindfold for the first part will counter most of it. The Hagoromo clan is only a dozen ninja strong, but they are scholars in addition to being ninja. Don't underestimate them, they use powerful and esoteric defenses, although they find it hard to adapt to the unexpected. With Danzo gone, the Shimura clan currently has no active ninja, so we're not going to target them. At least not until Shimura Makoto graduates in 3 years. For the Akamiki clan, we'll need several pillows so that we can simulate the body mass of their clan members. They tend to like things as uncomplicated as possible and are almost compulsively tidy, so to get past their outer defenses, we need to cause a mess just here. The Inazuka clan rely almost exclusively on unpartnered ninkin for their security. There are no patrol schedules, meaning that it can be either impossible or laughably easy to sneak through. Our best weapon is me to use as a distraction. Hiruzen glanced round and hid a smile that he knew the assembled clan heads, from both the major and minor clans, wouldn't appreciate. You have all been visited by Team 4 over the last fortnight, he announced. All of you have received reports on how they gained entry to your compounds and retrieved these. At his final word, Hiyashi and Fugaku entered, carrying almost a dozen scrolls between them. Laying them on the table in the middle of the hall, they stepped back and took up positions flanking the Hokage. I have released Team 4 for the rest of the week with a bonus, and they'll be redoing the missions from next week, as well as a few extra ones. Hiruzen said, letting his smile leak through. Hopefully, it won't be too troublesome for you to do better next time. Shikaku sighed. Team 4 had simply sent someone in to slouch through the clan compound during their afternoon nap. To add insult to injury, the same person had then rearranged the pieces on Shikaku's personal shogi board into the kanji for baka. Shikaku had been torn between indignation and respect for the sheer chutzpah of the intruder. We rock. Naruto laughed before he started to inhale his 5th bowl of ramen, and Ide nodded. Big brother actually laughed when he heard how I got the scroll from the Nara clan. I think the shogi thing amused him as well. Using his shogi board to call him an idiot. Yugura grinned. I think Naruto's prankster nature is rubbing off on you. Ide looked horrified, an expression which sent Naruto into a fit of laughter, dropping his empty bowl onto the counter before he landed on the floor. Ide shook his head with a resigned expression. UHRGH. There aren't the words, but at least I proved I wasn't a slouch compared to you two. It was a cool trick, though. Yugura added as Naruto pulled himself back up to the counter and accepted another bowl of ramen. The way you moved through the Nara compound, you're a tremendous slouch. Ide glared at the taijutsu prodigy, then accepted a second bowl of ramen. You realize that it'll be harder to do the missions again? He noted, and Yugura nodded. That is the point. We show the clans where they are weak, they figure out a way to solve the problem, and we test the solution. As the clans become more secure, Konoha as a whole gets stronger. Well put. Aoi smiled as he sat down beside them. Once you've all finished, I think that it's time for you to find out your elemental affinites. After all, I am seriously considering entering you into the next Chunin exams, so the more jutsu you have mastered, the better. Oh, the next bowls are on me. Best sensei ever. Naruto cheered and his teammates nodded in agreement. Oh, Idate, Aoi sensei, Yugura and I have almost finished excavating the onsen, laying the stones and planting the hedge around it. By the end of the week, we'll have a lovely hot outdoor bath to relax in. Nice. Aoi said with a smile. Once you've all finished, though, it'll be time for that thing I mentioned. So, it is time to check your affinities. Aoi said as he handed over a small piece of paper to each genin, then held up one of his own. To find out what your affinity is, you channel chakra into the paper, like this. The paper in Aoi's hand caught fire and Aoi dropped the ashes. As you can see, I am a fire type, although I have a small secondary wind affinity. Naruto concentrated and the paper in his hand split in half. Wind, a good offensive element to have. Aoi nodded. Yugura's paper turned brown and crumbled. Earth, a good element for a taijutsu specialist such as yourself. Using earth nature chakra correctly will help you become stronger. And now for you, Idate. Idate's paper crinkled and Aoi nodded. Lightning, just like your brother. You may want to speak to him about learning the techniques he uses. I myself have very little knowledge about lightning techniques. Idate nodded and Aoi smiled. So you now all know your elements and it is time to start training. Please pick up a leaf. The genin all scrambled to collect several leaves and Aoi held up a leaf of his own. How the chakra paper reacted is what you want to make the leaf do. For a fire and wind type like myself. The leaf in Aoi's hand ignited and burned to ashes and he picked up a second leaf and cupped his hands around it, opening them a second later to let both halves of the leaf drift down. You need to find your own way of visualizing how you apply the chakra. Idate, if your brother is too busy, you may want to ask Hitaki Kakashi for a few pointers. Yugura, my friend Toji Mizuki is an earth release type, I'll ask him to train you for a few days. Naruto, there aren't many wind release users in Konoha, Futon is a very rare affinity. I can start you off, but as I said, my wind affinity is very slight. Can I delay it a day? Naruto asked, looking slightly embarrassed. I've kinda got a picnic planned with Hinata tomorrow. A picnic? Aoi asked with an amused grin and Naruto's blush darkened. I hope you intend to show her a good time. Heck yeah, Naruto replied, nodding furiously. I've been buying cooking lessons from Tsuki and Ayami just for this. But you've been with, Yugura started before he stopped and slapped his forehead. Kage Bunshin, right? Yep. Naruto laughed. They're awesome. Yugura stared at him. Naruto, I don't recall seeing any formal clothing in your house. Naruto swallowed nervously. What's wrong with my outfit? Hey, put me down. Hey, sensei, this isn't funny. Yugura and Idate grinned as they followed Aoi and the protesting Naruto.